There you go.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Listen. No, in here. In here. Come on.
Can you hear me okay?
So just FYI for folks online, we are waiting for one more person to show up. So we have quorums and we should be ready in about a minute here. So
Hey, did I show
thank
up?
you for your patience.
Carl, did I show up?
Yes, Joy, I'm seeing you
Oh,
on the panelist
okay.
list.
I had some trouble.
Thank you
so
for joining us.
absolutely.
I think we have quorum. It is 5:06 and I am going to call to order the August 26th meeting of the Manitou Springs Mobility and Parking Board. So thanks to everyone who made it. Hi. And we're going to start with a roll call. So I am Corey Sutella, the chair. Carl Stang.
Present.
Rolf Jacobson is excused. Bill Kerner. Absent. Joy Porter.
Present.
Thank you, Joy. Present online. And Luke Prince.
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Luke. So we do have quorum. And I'm sorry, everyone, for being a few minutes late, but here we go. I think the first item is approval of the agenda. We'll start with approval of the agenda. I'll say we'll move approval of the minutes down one item into D, and I would ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
And I'll second that.
That's Luke, and that's with the slight amendment of moving the minutes approval down under item D, right? All in favor? Is there any other discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Joy, I heard you say aye, so that the chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. And next up, we have approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion about the minutes from the June MAP meeting? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from June.
I'd like to motion to approve the minutes from June.
Thank you, Luke.
Second.
Carl. Any other discussion about approval of minutes? Hearing none, I would request a vote to approve the minutes from June. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I'm not sure. We're not at public comment just yet, so we will. I see Cheryl had her hand up and we will address public comment in a second. The chair votes aye on the approval of the minutes and that passes unanimously. Now we are at the moment for public comment on non-agenda items. And we have a hand up. We've got two hands up. Three. Okay, we're going to start online tonight. We're going to do online comments. So I see and recognize Cheryl Klein.
Hi.
Cheryl, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So do I need to give my address or that kind of thing?
You still need to give address, right? Yes? No longer need to give your address.
Sure. Great.
Cheryl,
Okay.
I am aware that you are a Manitou resident and a neighbor,
Yeah.
so thanks for being here
Right.
and commenting. So please go ahead and if possible, please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay. I see that you have on the agenda RPP, I guess that's residential parking permits. Is that something you'll be discussing?
Yeah, we've got the RPP document and it's a discussion item. We're not voting on it tonight.
Well, because I have
we'll talk
a
about
comment
the
about
process.
that. So I better go ahead and give my thoughts. I am
Now would be
concerned about parking in the residential areas and also the guest parking. we've had a situation here in our immediate neighborhood where a new tenant of you know, a home in the area has moved in and brought three older pickups, trucks, and as well as additional vehicles like a couple of motorcycles, a three-wheel kind of thing that he's got up in his yard. But early on, he parked them down the street in an area where there's no one living, but it started off as just two vehicles and then it became three pickups and a mobile trailer. And then a person in that area reported that there was fuel leaking from one of the vehicles, or at least one, I'm not sure how many. And he was visited by the parking staff and had a 3-day citation and time to move vehicles or whatever. And the trailer did go away, but then the one with leaking fuel was moved down to immediately in front of my home. And I did speak with parking staff today, and they recommended the code people come out. So they did come on out. And I also spoke with the fire department, and they came out. I'm concerned about vehicles like this that are leaking fuel. I could smell it in my backyard, and I'm very health conscious, and I don't want to be smelling fuel. And it's also an environmental hazard, I understand. Well, they said that it could, potentially get into the water system. And all they could do was kind of put some mats down to soak up the fuel, but there's not much the fire department, and I'm not sure what code is allowed to do, but they did come out and take some photos. I'm concerned about guest passes and how many you're allowing, and how long a guest would be allowed to use them, because he's used at least one guest pass on some of these vehicles and his 2 residential passes. And I know that, there's a 3-day limit on how long a vehicle can stay in one area, but, he's moving them around, and it still has the issue of the fuel concern. And then the other issue about this particular person is that I spoke with him one day, not about the parking, but he just brought up that he likes to tinker with these vehicles. And so I asked him, is this a hobby or a business? And he said, well, and he kind of like intimated that he might turn it into a business. And I just would like there to be some kind of stipulation that you can't run a business on the street with multiple very old vehicles, some of them leaking fuel. So those are my concerns. And I'd like you to address, vehicles that are going to be allowed, depending on the numbers, be in working condition and not have this environmental and health hazard allowed. That there be some kind of time limit on getting them repaired or move them away from the area. Is that clear on what my concerns are?
I think it's clear to me.
Yeah.
Carl, did you want to comment?
Yeah, Cheryl, this is Carl Stang.
Uh-huh.
Can you elaborate about what you heard from code enforcement? Did they offer you any potential solutions, or what the existing ordinances say about this kind of situation?
I didn't hear any clarity on that. I was appreciative that he came out. When I spoke first to mobility to Wendy, she explained to me, you know, that she's customer service, that she would get the information because I'd asked to talk to James and he was on lunch. So she was going to get it to code enforcement. And then, you know, shortly after and then I called the fire department. And so shortly after Jeremy from the fire department showed up, Robert, the code enforcement personnel, I guess it's just one person, showed up and he gave me his phone number. Well, he kind of gave it to Jeremy and I noted it, but I didn't get any clarity on what their next step would be or what the rules are.
I think there's, this is Joy. I think there are some rules in Manitou other than mobility or ordinances, I'm not sure, about vehicles that aren't licensed, inoperative, or causing situations, but I don't know that ordinance.
Thank you, Joy. And thank you, Cheryl, for bringing this up. I would
One
like to
last comment is he has his registration with parking on the vehicle out here in front of me, my home, and it's got one of his 2 registrations, parking permits. And then the one halfway down the block on the other end of Pilot Knob has the other one, I guess, that he would be allowed. As far as I could tell, there is nothing on the vehicle parked in front of his home, and it doesn't look like it's inoperative. It looks inoperative because I've never seen it move.
Yeah, that's good to know.
And I don't think it has any kind of, even the guest permit on it.
Okay. I would like to give staff a chance to comment on this if you're able. So James or Felipe, are you able, are you aware of this issue and are you able to comment on it tonight? Right now. Okay. So Felipe and James are aware, and I think Joy is right. I'm not familiar with the ordinances, but there's got to be ordinances saying, you know, number one, you can't have leaking vehicles on public streets. Do you happen to know? I assume that's the case.
We've had these concerns before on different.
Can you
streets.
speak into the mic, please, Felipe?
Yes, Cheryl, thank you for bringing these concerns up. We've had them before in other streets. We certainly go out there, document, take pictures, you know, do the smells test and assess from there. And we do follow up with this. So we'll be sure to stay in touch with you,
Thank you.
Wendy.
Okay, so sounds like we may have a violation happening and our staff is going to look at this. So again, Cheryl, thank you for bringing this up. And yeah, we're grateful for you participating. So we'll be sure to get back to you with a response.
Oh, I'm probably over 3 minutes, but there is that one issue about on the off-street versus on-street parking. I understand that there might be some discussion with your discussion later. Some of us have some off-street parking, but I wouldn't want to be limited if we don't have, that we couldn't have on-street parking. I like to park my vehicle sometimes right in front of my house, which I can't do now because of that vehicle. But, you know, I have 2 big shade trees and it gets super hot and I like to be out there. I don't have a garage to put my car in, but I like to get out there and I wouldn't want to be restricted to no street parking because I happen to have one off-street parking. So I would really like to be conscious, or you to be conscious about whatever you're deciding about street versus off-street.
Thanks, Cheryl. And just for clarification on the process, so we do have a revision proposed for the RPP documentation. It's not going to be voted on tonight, but we're going to present it tonight. And our hope is that we'll be able to vote on it next month. So that will be the time when we'll take public comment on the proposed changes to the code. Keep those comments in mind, and there will be a future opportunity to weigh in on that. For now, we're logging your comment as a concern about a potential code violation. Staff is aware, and we're going to follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. next on my list, I see Amy Karras. Next one down, I think James. I see Isla Quinn has a hand up and we'll get to that in a minute, but Amy, did you want to speak?
She's probably muted.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. Hi, thanks. Yes, it's along the same lines as Cheryl, but I did want to say I've talked to the parking department several times. They said that the policies in place right now are from 2017 that one single resident can have 2 permanent guest tags and 1 guest pass, and the guest pass has no limit on how long you can have that on a vehicle. So somebody can use it for up to a whole year on a certain vehicle. So that's how this resident on Pilot Knob is parking 3 vehicles year round. To me, a guest pass means a guest is visiting it's not up to me to determine this, but maybe you guys could discuss this and potentially change this for future. But to me, it seems like 3 or 4 weeks max would be the most a guest could park on Pilot Knob. Otherwise, what's the point of having the name guest pass? It's basically he has 3 resident passes is how he's using them right now. So to me, that seems like a very outdated policy that allows somebody to park 3 vehicles. And then when any of us on our street have a guest of our own, family or friends visiting, then our family and friends don't have anywhere to park because somebody has 3 vehicles that are permanently parked year round. So to me, that seems like a very bad policy that allows behaviors like this. And it seems like 3 vehicles for 1 person is a lot of vehicles to me. And it seems like he needs to find alternate parking or rent somewhere to store these vehicles, but 3 is a lot of vehicles to me for 1 person. I also wanted to address that on Pilot Knob, we have permitted parking, but I rarely see the parking ambassadors up here to enforce that. So we get incliners up here parking and they know they can get away with it because they know it's not enforced. So I don't know if there's not funding to reinforce at this time, but I see a lot of unticketed vehicles that don't belong on this street. So I wanted to bring that up. And I am also concerned about the vehicle leaking gas. I called the police department today, police dispatch, to pass it on to Manitou Police because the fire department couldn't cite that vehicle. But I asked if police could give them a warning or a fix-it ticket. So it's all very concerning. And we've tried talking with the individual himself, and he's not receptive to our concerns or issues. So I appreciate you guys taking this on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amy. So I think, I'm hearing some interest in looking at the policy. And again, we're going to review some proposed changes tonight, but we won't vote on it. So there will be public input on the policy itself at the next month's MAP meeting. And I also heard a concern about incliners parking on Pilot Knob. I live on Pilot Knob also. I will say I have seen parking enforcement on Pilot Knob, and I think this is a great time for us to remind all residents about the parking hotline, which I don't have at the top of my memory at this moment, but I bet Felipe or James could remind us of that parking number.
719-685-2600, option 2.
685-2600, option 2. So I have used that before and have found that as a pretty reliable way of getting attention when there's a car that's not parked properly. So that's the number to use if you see someone parking in an RPP that's not supposed to. And I see Carl's got his hand up.
Yeah, maybe a question for Amy, just a clarification. So is this tenant renting? And I guess the reason I'm asking, is there a way to potentially go to the landlord and see what their lease term is? You know, if they're potentially violating the terms of a lease agreement as a way to potentially resolve this issue?
I'm not certain that's in our purview here at the MAP board.
Definitely not in the MAP purview, just trying to throw an idea out there that might give them some recourse.
Yeah, I see. I think that's outside of what MAP or staff can address directly, but your comments noted. Thanks, Carl. Okay, Isla Quinn.
Yes.
Please go
I
ahead. We
would,
can hear you.
hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I have two concerns. One, same as Amy, that we have families that have multiple or persons that have multiple vehicles, which makes it difficult as we are a very small street and it's difficult to park anyway. I am handicapped and I have requested a handicap designation for at least one parking space on the street and I never heard back anything. It would be very useful for me if I could park across from my house and be able to access my stairs without struggling with walking half a block or a whole block to get there. And I would like to see that people that have multiple vehicles have some respect for the other neighbors who need to park cars. That's my commentary.
Okay, and if I understand it right, you've requested a handicap placard.
No,
But
I have handicap tags and placards. I need to have a space designated. I realize I'm not the only person that can use it as a handicapped person, but it would be helpful to me to have a handicap place designated on the block so that I have an opportunity to park, given that it's sometimes very crowded up here and difficult for me to walk any distance.
Okay, I'm not sure if we do that as a matter of course. If on a public street, we can just designate a handicap spot. Felipe, do you have anything to direct on that?
That is correct, Corey. Currently, we don't designate those. It's on our RPP 2013 guidelines, but other than that, the conditions in the field also don't allow for that. So at this particular moment in any area assessed.
Okay, so that may be something that we consider as we look at our RPP process, whether we think it's something that needs to be added. So thanks for bringing that up. This is a really good time to bring it up.
Thank you.
And we have an audience member who'd like to speak. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me. First, I want to, my name is Dorothy Early, and I want to apologize for not being able to make it to the initial meeting when you talked about Ute Trail and Minnehaha Avenue. I'm very sorry about that. I was supposed to speak for my neighbors, and so anyway, I had called the next day, apologized to James. So why I'm here tonight is Felipe had invited me. I had started the process, and excuse me, I'm going to read from this so I don't go off. I started the process for residential parking when Kevin was in charge of the parking department. I don't really know if any of you remember Kevin. I believe it was 2018. I forget when Kevin left, but he kept saying he was going to start the process and nothing ever happened. And then James didn't really take over, but then it just never went forward. And James had mentioned at one point that with the new RRP process that we would have possibly access to park on Manitou Avenue. When I first moved here 30 years ago, I was able to go and park on Manitou Avenue if I needed to. If I couldn't get up the street or if it snowed, whatever, I couldn't get up to Ute Trail. Now then that disappeared. And so some of my neighbors were really looking forward to that. I don't care really now one way or the other. And I also have a driveway. I don't need any of the residential parking only. I did this for my neighbors because I was retired. I went around and got signatures 3 times. Once because people had moved and another time because parking had lost them. It was somewhat amusing to be told after that last meeting that they couldn't go forward because some of the signatures were old. I think if, somebody's not going to do something for years with information I gave them, of course they're going to be old. I'm sorry for thinking that was amusing. I have spoken to the new residents who were in favor of the plan that had moved after some people have moved, except one resident who was extremely rude and started to complain about the residential parking only on the street he previously lived on. He told me he would vote against it if it was approved. But now somebody told me he was okay with it if he could park on Manitou Avenue. All I'm thinking is, how about being more considerate to your neighbors? His one vote won't really matter anyway. I heard of opposition at the last meeting for the plan to park on Manitou Avenue, which I couldn't understand from the people that live on Manitou Avenue, but not on Minnehaha or really Waltham. When I started this, I certainly didn't think it would be such a source of contention. I heard my neighbor Linda from Minnehaha was here, didn't want it, but I had talked to one of her neighbors across the street from her who wanted it. I certainly don't want to cause any animosity between my neighbors, and I think it might be better just to go back to the residential parking only just for Ute Trail. And just forget about Manitou Avenue. I don't know if it's such a big problem. I don't really want to get involved and have my neighbors really dislike me for this. Through the years, I called Roy Chaney and Denise Howe several times to ask them what was up with this. How could it actually take years to get this done? Really? Do you? No, it's really ridiculous. How could anything get done in this city? I mean, other streets have it. This is really,
Right.
I mean, and I asked one of my neighbors if she wanted to come with me because Felipe said, well, you should bring somebody with you. She said, I am not wasting another minute of my time with this. So I don't know, at this point, like I said, I don't need it. I have a driveway. It would be nice to have it just because, I know this other lady was saying that on the street, off the street parking. I try not to park on the street because I don't want to take my neighbor's spaces. And then this person that was complaining, she said, oh, I bet you got your space all picked out. I have a driveway. I don't need a space. And I don't need people being rude to me when I'm trying to do my neighbors a favor. So I think that might be my 3 minutes. So that's all I want to say. I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't. I mean, you people are in charge. Decide what you want to do, but geez,
Well, thanks for thinking we're in charge, first of all. And thank you very much for sharing your experience. And I would like to take the opportunity to apologize to you for the struggle and, definitely we're all aware of this, right? We've seen turnover in staff.
Right.
We are familiar with the application. It came before us a few months ago and it was unclear, but the one thing that was clear is that it was stale. It was
Right.
a few years old. It hadn't
Right.
followed the published process. And meanwhile, this board was also in discussion about the need to improve the RPP process.
Right.
How someone could apply for it. And I think in particular, the decision that could be made to expand one, because if you think about how an RPP gets formed, some people say, hey, we want an RPP. Maybe their neighbors don't think they need one, but one forms and soon enough, the problem shifts to their neighbors and there may be a need to expand the RPP. So I think that's kind of the problem that happened here is there was an issue on Ute. There was a proposal to incorporate Ute into the Manitou Avenue existing RPP. And then there was some contention about whether that was appropriate. And what you're highlighting is 100% a problem with the process. And again, you're here at the right time, or we're going to have tonight we are going to be looking at some proposed changes to the RPP, and we're not going to vote on those. It is scheduled to be an action item for the process will be next month. So I'm really sorry. I think the pain you're feeling is experienced by many people in our community. We need better clarity and we need to improve our process. And then we need to follow the process that we have. And I'm sorry we didn't do that in this case.
Well, thank you.
My commitment to you is that, it's one of our 4 goals that we've set for this board for this year is to address that process and to improve it. So we are making steps towards that. And I'm just really grateful that you're here to share your story. And I hope that you'll remain engaged just as a community member to try to help us fix it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I do want to stay engaged. My other neighbors said, no way, they're not coming. I don't think you guys are going to do anything. But, I know it's a problem because Kevin left. And then, James told me they were remodeling or whatever, going through this thing, which I know is a problem. And, but it just seems like we were getting ignored. So
Yep.
So I really thank you for apologizing and I accept your apology.
Yeah, I think you're justified in feeling that way, and I promise you that we're gonna try to make it better.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members here?
Okay.
And the floor is now open if we have other public comment.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm probably going to sit just for a little while
Please do.
and listen.
You're
Okay.
very welcome to. Yes, please.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me talk tonight and for all of your service to this board. It's very much appreciated in town. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Mary Mozzie. I am a non-resident business owner in town with two little kiddos, well, not so little anymore, who choice into the Manitou Springs School District. And I'm here to talk specifically about the lack of any parking accommodations for families who choice into the school district. So to clarify, if you haven't had kids or it's been a while, students that don't reside within the school district boundary can apply for admission to the district as a choice-in student. Last year, approximately half of the district student body commuted in daily as choice-in students. Most of this traffic happens outside of tourist season from late August through May when the town could use extra business. As a parent, there's often time to kill and meals to be eaten between picking up your kids at 3:20 and when school ends, and a Friday night football game or the middle school play or whatever. There's always something going on at the school. It's great. But there's no incentive to keep this captive audience supporting Manitou Springs businesses instead of driving to Old Colorado City or back up the mountain where they can park for free just off the Ave. We're not residents, but we're not tourists either. We show up here 5 days a week and many Saturdays, 9 months a year. I'd like to suggest a discussion about free parking credits or some other type of easy pass for choice-in families. Families could register like residents currently do, proving student enrollment in order to be given a pass or free credits that could only be valid during the school year. That's all we could get. Hopefully something like that is a small administrative ask for the parking department, but it would be a meaningful signal and insight to the families propping up this district's enrollment. And that enrollment matters more than it might seem. I don't know if you've seen the billboards on Fillmore and around the bus stations. Every one of those 550 choice-in students last year are a line item on the state funding formula. Treating these families like an afterthought is working against the town's interests, both in the loss of sales tax revenue and community engagement from choice-in families during our off-season. So I know you can't have a solution tonight, but if you could please consider a future agenda item to open a conversation about a parking structure that doesn't penalize the local families for bringing their students here. We're choosing Manitou. We just want the town to choose us back.
Thank you, Mary. So you just so I understand the scope of this, you mentioned there's like 550 students that choice in?
Roughly, that was last year. Yep, the estimates we usually get is 40 to 60% of the student body is choiced in. So they aren't residents of the district.
Right, so that's probably something like 200 families or more,
Or
200
more.
to 300 more. Yep. And does the school give you any ability to park at the school?
Usually no. And really, I'm looking for the families that are coming, dropping off their kids, picking up their kids, maybe coming in a little early and going downtown and utilizing our businesses while they're already driving here.
Uh-huh.
And trying to grab that captive audience in the off season when town, you can park on the street.
Visitation is low. Right. Okay, yeah. Interesting concept. Do any board members have comments or questions? I think this is a good idea that we should consider, and I'm not sure where it fits exactly. Felipe, did you have any questions or want any more information about this?
No, I think it's these points are taken and we will follow up with them. But I did want to mention to everybody that currently in the last couple of months we have allocated 10 parking spots between the library and the school across the street on Pawnee. to be a drop-off zone for children there, and that's a 2-hour limit, twice a day there. We also have engaged with the school to deter their employees from parking in those 10 spots and make it available for library patrons and the school drop-offs as well. So I just wanted to comment on that. So we are trying to coordinate with the school and library and the ecosystem, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, and I'll just note, we're investing in digital and online solutions for parking. So the idea that we might be able to coordinate with the school and maybe provide some incentive, especially during the lower visitation times, it's a really interesting idea. So thank you very much for bringing that forward.
Corey, maybe just a clarifying question. So what I thought I heard Mary say was targeting parking downtown such they can use the business, go for a coffee, bagel, whatever, while they're waiting to drop their kids or after they drop their kids off, which is different than parking up at like the high school parking lot, right? So
It's a bit of a long walk to go get a bagel, isn't it?
it's a bit of a walk to get a coffee, right? So is that a clear interpretation of your statement?
Yes, to get them downtown
Right. And also during events?
and events.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you have a 2 to 4 hour window of paid parking before like 7 o'clock football game starts. But
Right.
it's that gap to grab even the students to come down that are coming in from out of town.
Yeah. So a great concept. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, we're doing great with public comment. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Well, we'll close public comment on non-agenda items. And I really do want to say thank you very much. It's actually, we've had a dearth of people. There haven't been many public comments in the last couple of months. We're really grateful that we've got some engagement here. So genuinely, thank you for being part of the MAP meeting. All right, next up, we've got the one and only, our City Council Liaison, Nate Nassif. Please take it away with our City Council Liaison report.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to echo, I really think that's a neat idea that you presented. So just to echo the Chair's sentiment, thank you for being here and taking the time. So as tradition, I just have a few key bullet points, and then if anyone on the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So I think from our last meeting, there was a pretty substantial settlement that occurred with the COG Railway and the city. And one of the sentiments that I like to accentuate there is that both parties prioritize the community first. I think the prospect of a long legal process would not have been optimal for either side. And so I think that was a good outcome. To postscript that theme around the budget, we had a formal budget retreat on the 15th. And I think it was a really important one because it presented a financial framework to help the community understand the operational challenges in an easily digestible way. So our city, our sacred city, faces some significant operational challenges. And if there aren't new revenue opportunities, expense reduction opportunities, the structural deficit is pretty significant. So since that time, we've slated another budget retreat for October 5th. And the expectation there is that with more granularity and specificity, those revenue levers and expense levers will be discussed, reviewed in a serious way to help us turn the corner. Related to that is City Council did approve to put a ballot measure on the ballot that deals with the amusement tax, the excise tax, as a potential way to generate revenue. One of what I hope emerges is of many revenue opportunities. And I wanted to just close with, I think Jenna, who's the executive director of our chamber, their team is working on a new sign on Highway 24, and it's really cool if you haven't seen the design concept. And so I wanted to end on a lighter note. It's not been finalized. I know the city had some requests, but those are my bullet points, Chair Corey, and open to any questions or clarifications.
See, Carl's got his hand up. Go ahead, Carl.
So the next budget retreat, October 5th, that's a Monday, is that?
Yes,
So
yeah.
would it be morning, evening,
It's
any
all
idea?
day.
All day, okay.
Yeah, nine to 3, I believe, subject to change, but that's the current
Okay.
target.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions on the city council liaison report? I would just like to express gratitude to council and to all the people that worked for a long time to get to the settlement resolution with the COG. That's something that's been hanging over our community and preventing us from having meaningful discussions for a long time. So, you know, regardless of how you feel about the contents of it, getting a settlement is important for our community. So just like to express thanks for that, and opens the door for more constructive conversation going forward. Okay, we'll move into presentations. We're going to start with a quick goal review. And before we dig into the meat of the RPP revisions, I'm going to just review at a really high level. We've got 4 goals that have been approved for the map board for this year. One is the RPP revisions. Oh, and here's the list of the 4 goals that have been approved. So goal 1 is to finalize the RFP for the bike and ped plan. And I think we are going to hear a staff update about the accelerator grant. So that's how we're addressing that one. That's coming up later in this agenda. Goal 2 is to schedule and conduct a strategy session with city council. That is still on hold. We're still trying to get settled with the new council. But we have a high degree of interest in collaborating and coordinating with city council and making sure that we've got a clear role for the map board. That relates really clearly to goal number 3, which is a policy manual and an onboarding manual for the map board. That will be a discussion and hopefully a voting item tonight. And then our 4th goal is to address the RPP. We've got a draft of that will be for discussion tonight. And we're hoping to vote on that at next month's meeting. And I have had a request for a 5-minute recess before we jump right into the details of the RPP revision. So we are going to, it is now 5:48. We're going to take a 5-minute recess and we'll come back at 5:53.
Even hate to say that. Because you had said.
Running a little bit late.
Confusion. They were gonna go forward with the.
Okay, I think we're gonna get back going here. And can I just double check, Joy, are you still with us?
Uh-huh, I'm still with you, Corey.
Great, thank you. So we're back at it with the RPP. And James, I think we may have a task to let Nate into the restroom. Okay, so watch me stall just a minute. Okay. So next on the agenda is, so this will be the first time it's presented here to the map board. These are proposed revisions to the residential permit parking process and procedure. And our intention tonight is to kind of go through these at a high level. We'll have a presentation from staff about the meat of what is proposed to be changed. And then we'll have the rest of the month to kind of think things through. And then our hope is to come back. We'll be collecting feedback and input. And our hope is that we can make a recommendation that we can vote on at next month's meeting. And before we jump into that, I think Carl's got a comment.
Mr. Chair, do you mind clarifying how you would like feedback on the guideline and procedure that's been presented here?
Yeah, what I'm imagining is that we'll present this tonight, we'll have a bit of discussion, and then proposals for changes or revisions, I think should be sent into staff. And so should that be right directly to you, Felipe? Yeah. So that's how we'll do it, is we'll ask for feedback from the board or from the public to be sent to Felipe. Okay. Felipe, you want to walk us through? I think we don't need to go line by line, but I think we would like to know, generally what is the approach that we're planning to take with the revisions to the RPP? Okay, over to you, James.
Yeah, James will go through the suggested guideline and procedures for the new residential parking permit.
All right, so with the RPP revision, my main goal with this process was to not structurally change the RPP too much, because we felt that the bones of the existing RPP were good. It just needed to be made more concise, and some of the ambiguous language needed to be removed and replaced with more direct language that establishes a more clear policy. And so as we kind of go through this, you'll see almost identical policy on a lot of what the RPP does. But we'll go ahead and just work through it, and we'll go from there. So first we have the introduction and the purpose. This really is meant to establish what the RPP is, why it's being, why this process exists, and why there would be a need for this program. And it does also establish what this program does not do.
And James, just for clarification, is all of the text we're looking at new, or are you going to show us red lines, or how are you presenting this tonight?
So this is not necessarily a red line document. It is a full rewrite. So again, the goals of the policy and the rules of the policy are not changed on a fundamental level. There are just minor improvements, adding clarification on previously vague topics, and adding in definitions for various terms that were used in the application. So the overall accomplishment is you have a fundamentally similar document that has been shortened and made more concise, and things that were previously vague have been defined. So I don't have a red line copy, so to speak, because this is a full rewrite.
Yeah, and just to extend on James, so this document went from 37 pages to 11 pages, I believe. And then it has the changes themselves, the meat of it at the end of the document. So we'll go through those as well. So it's not a hidden thing. They're all there. So, but it does align and expedite the information for the user case at this point.
And I guess would there be value in starting with that page? Just so there can be discussion on what's changed.
I would say so. I think what I was anticipating was sort of, yeah, like tonight, I think what we really want to get is, here's what we're planning to change. And then we've got time to go through and digest over the next month. We can go through and and digest the specific changes.
That makes sense to me. So let's go ahead and pull up that page.
Could I raised my hand and I just have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Joy. Sorry, I didn't see that. It
Okay.
didn't come up here, but
That's
please go ahead.
okay. It went up and down. I guess had two things before we get into what we're going to change. Is I had two comments. One of the things I've noticed with RPP, and I've been on it quite a long time, is that when we're going around to ask the neighbors, I think after they're contacted 3 times by the community member who's sort of spearheading it, I think we need to send a registered letter, because that makes it more complete. I think from the thing that was going on at UPass, a lot of the people felt that no one contacted them. And I think a registered letter would assist us. And the other thing I'd like us to look at would be the 51%, whether it should be 55 or 60% of the neighbors agree, rather than just one more than the majority. Those are two things I'd like added at some point, someplace to the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Joy. And my understanding of the proposal we're going to see tonight is not going to change the rules. So probably what we'll see tonight, we'll stick with the 51% that was in there before. But I think, Joy, your comment is a really good one. What is the right percentage that would be required? So I think that would be a good thing to bring forward. So please include that in your comments. Carl.
So a couple of comments, if I may. So I scanned through this beforehand, and at a high level, I want to offer, kudos to the team. The consolidated, condensed version is much more readable and made sense to me. And I just want to emphasize, and maybe this is my interpretation, but I think this consolidation is born out of experience with the RPP and dealing with it. And that's what has led to the focus of, hey, we don't need, this was ambiguous. It wasn't intentional, right? But it's ambiguous before. So let's consolidate it and make the language clearer. And so, hey, we're learning from our lessons. And I think that's really positive. The last piece I thought I read in here, and I was trying to find it, and I didn't find it yet, that aren't we changing from 51% of folks' signatures collected to 51% of the segment? So it is an increase over the previous policy. Is that a correct statement?
And I think that was one of the vaguely written parts of the policy. So this clearly defines that it's 51% of all proposed, or all properties in the proposed segment. So that it's not just whoever signed the petition. So that is listed as one of the structural changes in this document.
And so just to really clarify that, so when they come forward with a RPP proposal, they're going to define, oh, it's this street from whatever, this house number, this house number, or street to street. And there's a certain number of properties within that proposed area. So the mark is collecting 51% positive signatures from those properties before the RPP would move to the next step. Whereas previously it was just you could reach, whoever you could reach that was available, and it was 51% of the folks that were actually answering the door on that day.
Correct.
Thank you.
And
I
the
think
other
that-
thing I would say is that I have tried to keep the document as close to the original as I could so that it's less of a lift to try to make a vast change so that we can condense it to a place where it makes more sense, it's more digestible. But I do think there is opportunity to make improvements even in its current state. So for example, on this page with my key revisions that I brought up is I also included kind of some contextual data as far as what other cities do, because I think these are potential discussion points that could be easily discussed, settled on, and then changes being made. One of those is the support threshold. I have listed other percentages that other cities do provide for that support threshold, just to give people awareness on what other cities are doing. So I wouldn't be afraid to propose potential changes. And there are inclusions in here that set out to define vaguely worded terms. So for example, chronic levels of congestion was not clearly defined in the original guidelines. So one thing that I have put in here as a proposed update is implementing a definition of what that is. So this lists a occupancy percentage that would need to be met to be eligible, as well as a percentage of non-residents that would need to be present in the area to identify non-resident or commuter traffic in those areas. And I've listed 75% occupancy and 25% as non-resident occupancy, kind of as like a baseline. The city that I've taken inspiration on this was from Austin, Texas. So again, this is a discussion item that does merit discussion because a lot of what I've seen is that 50% threshold may be too high and make it difficult for an RPP to actually be implemented. So tweaking those numbers and tweaking these suggestions is what I'm essentially recommending happen here. As far as things that I've proposed and our department has proposed as potential improvements to this policy. So this does try to maintain the same spirit, but the things that were vague that needed definition, we've provided suggested recommendations on those revisions.
Thank you, James. Luke, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, when I was thinking through eligible properties, I was thinking that when we look at one RPP section that butts up against another one, that we would consider both of those RPPs to be eligible properties. So for example, if you have the Manitou Avenue stretch and you have Minnehaha looking to come into the Manitou Avenue RPP, that both those sections of eligible residents would be considered into this, not just the Minnehaha section, that the folks that are in the current existing RPP be part of that eligible threshold. So they would have say at the conversation table too. And I just wanted to make that the clarifying point that if you're looking at merging them, it would be all encompassing. So everybody has a say.
So if I understand your comment right, you're talking about, considering what's eligible, and would an adjacent existing RPP be considered eligible if
If it impacts them.
if it
which-
impacts them?
Yeah, which in this case it would. if
Yeah.
With the Minnehaha situation, bringing other people into their RPP zone. if it has impact directly to that RPP, I would consider that original RPP, because they're impacted, eligible in the vote, if you will.
Got it. Thank you, Luke.
But just to clarify, so that's an RPP expansion use case, not we're adding Minnehaha, brand new RPP, and it's neighboring the Manitou Avenue, but not expanding into Manitou. So therefore, you're not gonna petition Manitou Avenue residents for a brand new Minnehaha RPP.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. James, I think we're ready to go through your high level changes.
Yeah, so starting with the structural changes, so essentially what you see kind of throughout is a consolidation. So I've consolidated like sections into either easy to read graphics or just use more concise language to more or less cover the same points. So for example, I have consolidated the various descriptions of the processes because there were sections where there were processes listed multiple times in the original. So you will not see that in this. All of the permit eligibility notes are all in the same section where they were kind of fragmented before. And then I did add definitions to some of those more vague terms that were more or less left open for interpretation. So adding the definitions and clearly defining some of these loose terms is going to make administering this policy a lot simpler. So those were the kind of the key structural changes that I made to the overall RPP program. And then those items that were inherently ambiguous, I did go ahead and propose changes. So these are things that do need to be discussed and ultimately agreed upon because this is new language. This is language that didn't exist before. And this was done.
James, can I hold you there? And just before we jump into those, I see Joy's got her hand up. So I'd like to recognize Joy. You have the floor.
I think I didn't put my hand down.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. I just misread it. I thought
It
was
shows
down.
it shows us up here. Do you want to try to put it down?
I'm doing that right this
Oh,
second.
there's down. Great.
Is it down? All right. Sorry,
It's down now.
Corey.
No problem. No problem. Thanks. Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Of course. So the first thing is that support threshold. So it is at 51%, which is what the original documentation indicated. However, this clarifies that it is of all properties included in the proposed segment and not just of the signatures on the petition. So this just clarifies that point, but I did offer additional information that can be considered going forward as far as the percentage that threshold could or should be. So you can find that listed there. I also have added the occupancy standard, which is that 75%, 25% that I was kind of explaining earlier. Before, the original documentation just indicates chronic congestion. So this seeks to codify what that means and gives us a standard that we can provide data, and it just creates a better, more clear process as a result. Again, clarified that approval requires 51% of those properties as having a yes vote. It also clarifies that if those properties are non-responsive, meaning we reached out through all the various methods on multiple different days and they're still unresponsive, those don't count as yes votes They are just counted as unresponsive. And so, and then the final ambiguous ambiguity that has been removed is regarding the appeals process. So this defines and structures what that appeal process would look like and who carries it out. Another thing that has been included in this is a structured timeline of events. So it gives a rough structure of how this process should proceed and the expected timeline that that process should be completed in. So that is also in this document as well.
And James, just to be clear, that last point about the timeline isn't shown on here, right? It's not part of the appeal. So the appeals is a 30-day written appeal, but the time frame for the process, you are proposing change and it's not shown on the summary of a change. And I bring it up just because my recollection of the previous policy was, it was like you could only apply quarterly. It was a cadenced opportunity to bring something forward. And I always thought that that was an unnecessary burden.
So you are correct. It was not in the listed changes. So that's something that I will remedy, but this is the more or less process at a glance that does offer kind of a timeline of those various steps of the process.
Great. Okay. Carl, question?
So I actually had one of my comments in reviewing this was on that process. So the parking department generally accepts one RPP application per month on a first come, first served basis. And I'm not the expert in this, but that seems a bit onerous for people applying. And it feels to me, my initial recommendation is, can we not just strike that? And if we get multiple applications, we already state that we can consolidate, defer due to staffing. We already have policy in place to manage, we're overloaded or these are duplicate. So why restrict someone who's taking the initiative in the community to try and bring forward an RPP application?
Yeah, I think the idea was more or less to try to establish a limitation so that if we have multiple requests coming in, that we are able to more or less manage our resources accordingly. But I do see your point. I was more or less just trying to enable us to be able to allocate our resources accordingly.
James, what's the deadline in Appendix A?
Boy. So I know there are some documents that still need to be provided in here. So those are some of the gaps that still need to be implemented. I've filled some of those gaps leading up to this meeting, just because there's other forms and other documentation that needs to be added or provided for these various appendix topics. And I know that was feedback that was provided before the meeting. And so I was able to address some of those, but that's one that still needs to be established.
Okay, so we can look forward to that. Felipe, did you?
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to those gaps. So the other thing is the use case for this. So this is a complete document, but based on the use case, say you're a new resident in Manitou, what do I need to do to be successful with an RPP, right? Or if you are an RPP seeker or, any amendment to the existing RPPs or a new RPP, a different process. So people through our website would have access to specifically what they need for their use case circumstance. This document also will be including a map of all zones. There are 9 zones in the city. They're going to be color coded, and the permits also will have a color coded. They go with the map. The map is interactive. It will be on our website, and as you hover through the properties, they will see. Anybody will be able to see how many guest passes have been issued or permits, any of that, any information really relevant to the property, and just that. So that way, there can be statistics on those as well that are visible to everybody.
I'm gonna just echo Carl's comment that I mean, so right now Appendix A doesn't actually have the deadline, so that's, we said that's something that we can add later. I would like to probably, my recommendation is gonna be, we have a process, we can accept as many as come forward. I don't expect we're gonna have, a flood of a ton of them. We should be able to, it doesn't seem to me we want, you gotta wake up early on the first of the month so that you can show up at the parking office and camp out so you can get your application in. I think we should take applications when they come in and make a commitment to when we will at least schedule the process to start. And if we have multiple going at one time and we can't deal with all of them, then we would address it at that time. But I'm going to make the recommendation that we don't make a limit of 1 per month and tie it to a calendar event.
Okay, so again, I do see your point on that. One thing that this document does establish is that timeline. So if we are putting in code a timeline that the city is obligated to follow, by accepting multiple applications, the city would be obligated to follow that same timeline. So
yeah, there's
just-
probably ways we can get at it, and I think that's a detail we can address later.
Agreed. And again, I do think there is value in establishing that process so that the city is allowed to manage their resources as needed.
Yeah, absolutely has to have that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we could add a step of, you've gone through some sort of initial consultation, evaluation, and, the clock starts now. And, so if there's a multiple applications, workload challenges is like, hey, you have a valid application, but, we have workload capacity issues. We're going to put this on hold. You can make some sort of commitment and then like, oh, hey, now you've moved, back into the queue and this schedule kicks into place.
Yep. I think there's a solution in there. But so the main point is you make an application, there's a commitment to schedule the process starting not 3 or 5 years. And then the signatures are out of date. Okay, so there could be I'm sure there'll be some other details. So are there other conceptual comments that members want to make at this time? Joy, are you waving? I saw your hand go up. It's
Yes,
down.
I was waving. I
hi.
agree with you, Corey,
Joy.
that I could see people lining up at the office to be the only one on that month. And I don't think that's very calming to our residents. And some way to balance the workload, because we have to balance what the city has resources to. But I also think to restrict it to 1 a month is, I think we can get around being overwhelmed without making people feel they have to line up at the parking office on the first of the month. So that was my only
Thank you.
comment. Thank you.
Oh, your hand just went up again, just FYI.
Sorry, I'm playing with
problem.
it, Corey, not to irritate you. Because mine is saying raise, now it's saying lower. Leave.
I see it as up now.
Huh,
There, now it's down.
okay.
James, in this process, do we have any distinction between proposing a new RPP and proposing an amendment to an existing RPP?
I believe yes, because that was in the original, document. So it does still have
Merge,
the provision
modify.
for the removal or modification.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be an important one. So I'll speak for myself. I'm going to take some time to read through that carefully and make sure we're considering, because that is what happened with this Ute Trail application. They were applying to be, there's an RPP on Manitou Ave. There was an impact on an adjacent neighborhood, and they were applying to amend an existing one. And it's different than saying, hey, we want our own RPP just for our neighborhood. So, so that'll be an important part of it.
So this does still follow the same general process. So to amend or modify or remove an RPP, it essentially requires that they go through that same process. So the petition, the public engagement, map board approval, and then city council.
Great. And I see it says no refunds or issues. So is a permitting fee associated with this?
There are not, but it is something that could potentially be considered going forward.
Okay, so maybe we should have an appendix that lists fees, and the fees are listed as 0 for now.
So that's something that would be established through the city's fee schedule. So it's not something that we would want to have listed in this document.
But I think if we refer to fees, we have to be able to point somewhere. So yeah, so we could just point to a fee document. But so I think the point here is if there is a fee, there would be no refund for existing permits. But today there's no fees. Okay. Well, I think there's going to be a whole lot of detail to go through in here, including, maybe changes to percentages or, as Joy mentioned, to notification. I can imagine a challenge of what if you just cannot, you can have registered mail, I guess, but like what happens if somebody's away or not there? So we'll have to make sure that we address that adequately here.
And I do want to clarify, we do have fees, not for the residential permits, but we do have other permit types that we do charge fees for. So these are things like your workman passes, temporary construction permits, replacement guest passes, or replacement passes, period. So we do have fees that we do currently assess as part of the RPP.
Thank you, James. Carl?
So just procedural question regarding this RPP update and feedback. So all of the map board members should be providing their feedback to Felipe of what they would like to see changed in this document. Felipe will incorporate that, and then this will be presented at the next map board meeting as an agenda item for another discussion. And just really want to clarify, so if comments given verbally during this meeting, we should put in writing and send to Felipe and not rely on someone having taken notes, just to be really clear.
Yeah, and if this presents a higher challenge, I also recommend a work session possibly in between the voting session and just as a recommendation, because I think there's a lot of things that might benefit from that.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea that maybe we should plan to have a work session, particularly to go through this document prior to the next meeting. Seeing some heads nodding here. So, yeah, I think so. Carl, your statement is right. Feedback should be given in writing to Felipe, and we will schedule a work session prior to the next MAP meeting so that anyone who's interested, and that will be open to the public, so that anyone who's interested can come in and we can work through it. We won't make decisions at the work session, but we will robustly go through all the feedback. Okay. I think with that, we're ready to move on from this agenda item, unless there's other comments from anyone. Okay. let's move on. We've got no other map presentations, so we're on to staff presentations and we've got a Pike Ride update.
Alrighty, so we have seen a little bit of a dip from last year's numbers for the month of July. But I mean, that's been pretty consistent throughout this year. We've seen some lower numbers here, so
Unknown caller.
and there are the station specific numbers for you. And one thing of note is a little bit of a bump for Prospect and Boca. So hopefully that's something that continues to be a positive trend there, but
And James, if you would like to just clarify what the numbers mean for the public that hasn't been here before, I think that'd be.
yeah, of course. So basically the two numbers that you see here are starts and ends. And so starting means that they originated their ride in Manitou Springs, and ending means that the ride did not originate from Manitou Springs, but ended in Manitou Springs. So essentially, if you were to see a higher number of, yes. So essentially, if you were to see a higher number of ends than starts, then you could infer that more people were coming from outside of Manitou, such as from Colorado Springs into Manitou.
Well, James, this is per station, right? So
Correct.
if someone picked up in Shriver and dropped up at the Duck Stop, it would show a pickup at Shriver and a drop off at Duck. They could both be in Manitou.
Correct. So it could be a complete trip,
Mhm.
right? But it's essentially the first number starts, the second number is ends.
Got it.
But just know that they won't always match because
Right.
you'll have people coming from other locations.
Great, thank you.
Any questions on Pike Ride?
How many bicycles across all of the racks do we have in our service area?
18.
18
Yeah,
bicycles.
and we have 10 stations out there. And recently we are identifying the Duck Stop to be the an additional 6 racks out there to replace the Hiawatha at the moment until phase 2 is constructed.
Yeah, I think that's actually a maybe a major reporting item that we should share, is that it has been determined that we are going to establish a station at the Duck Stop. So do we have a time frame for when that'll be implemented?
So currently it's under review. So as soon as I have all the review in place, I'll be sending that to the Pike Ride, and it should be pretty soon here in the next month that we should be doing that. So
Okay. Carl?
And just to clarify, so previously there was a station at Hiawatha that was the highest numbers of starts and stops in Manitou. And obviously during construction that got shut down. And so now this is replacing that Hiawatha Pike Ride hub with this new Duck Stop hub. You know, part of that multimodal network.
Right, so
connectivity
the
there.
numbers for January and February showing at the Duck Stop, that was actually Hiawatha at the time. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So
So the name and the location has changed.
right, because when Hiawatha was closed, they had moved the station to the Duck Stop. Now it wasn't a full station. They were just utilizing the bike rack that was existing there. But we are going to be looking to move those stations from Hiawatha to the Duck Stop.
Okay,
I've got another question.
go ahead, Luke.
I'd be curious to know how often any one of these stations don't have a bicycle in them because they've all left. For example, Dillon Mobility Hub, how often are there no bikes at Dillon Mobility Hub because maybe a group of 5 people took the only 4 bicycles there? Is that, it'd be difficult to report on, I'm sure.
Well, maybe not.
But I
Is
like
that-
the idea of increasing the number of bicycles, particularly in locations that may see a 0 bicycle availability more frequently than others. Like, for example, I think Dillon numbers are horrendous based on how much we want to push Dillon as being a mobility hub.
Yeah, those are good points, Luke. We do keep a close eye on those. We do coordinate with Bike Ride. So those stations are, today they were empty. We did reach out to them to let them know to put some more. So today is the day that there wasn't anything there. But usually there is 2 bikes at all times at Dillon. And so that if anybody has the ability to use them. Another thing we're doing is collaborating with Bike Ride for the wayfinding signs for those particular reasons. So that there's more increased awareness of these bikes, their usage and things of that nature.
Okay, let's keep moving. Here we
Mountain
got
Metro.
Mountain Metro.
So this is the full month report for Mountain Metro. Unfortunately, the projections cut off, but the Route 3 is going to be the column here on the left-hand side. And these are just the total number of riders that were documented for that day. And then you have the monthly total listed down here at the bottom. The middle column here is going to be the Route 33 bus. And then on the far right here is going to be the combined daily totals. And then on these next couple pages will be just some visual graphs, just to kind of give folks an idea of how the trends have fluctuated over the years. So that's going to be the Route 3 comparison.
Question, Carl?
I'll wait until James hits the next slide.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out that the chart here, I believe is incorrect. I believe this is the Route 3 because for July 2026, Route 33 had 48,000. So I think there was an error in setting the charts here.
Yeah, it looks like they doubled up. That is unfortunate. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No problem, James. Maybe if you don't mind, after the meeting, if you could send out the
I'll
updated
get-
graph for the 33.
Yeah, I'll get it updated.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Carl.
Stay here.
I guess any questions Mountain Metro related?
Any progress on bringing back the stops throughout downtown business district?
The kind of the last step that we had is kind of a review of various proposed bus stops throughout town. And the purpose of the walkthrough was more or less to identify bus stops that required more or less the least amount of modifications to the existing infrastructure. And so a couple of the areas that we did look at were establishing a stop by the library right there at the corner of Pawnee and Manitou Avenue. We also looked closely at both reestablishing the stop just past the subway there, And then on the opposite side of the street, we looked at a couple of sites. One, I believe, was at Manitou and Oaks Place. And then alternatively, we did look at a site a little bit further east at the corner of Manitou and Crystal Park Road by the motel there. And so that was kind of the last update that we have. Felipe, I don't know if you have any further to add.
Yeah, so this is an active conversation right now as we're going. We are assessing that and also cost associated with it because it's a city cost bearing for it. But we're working towards a plan so we can at least move towards temporary stops, even if the work proceeds later. But yes, this is a very well seasoned topic right now that we're all actively pursuing. So.
And can you explain the process? Because I think we need to get approval from Mountain Metro if we're going to make a change. So what James is talking about is a staff assessment, or was that done with Mountain Metro?
That's with Mountain Metro. Yeah.
Okay. And how does a recommendation then, would it move forward?
So they assess everything out there and then they bring recommendations to council to approve. And that's kind of how the process is. I believe they're scheduled to come next month to talk about that. So there is more to follow on the next mobility and parking meeting, and we can update a little more quickly on that.
So will we see Mountain Metro at our next MAP meeting?
That council will have a meeting. I can invite them to this meeting as well. If that
Well,
will be of value.
I believe that would be of value. Otherwise, why are we looking at Mountain Metro numbers, right? So, yeah, my expectation is that if we're looking at making a proposal, my request would be that it would come to this board so that we would have a chance to make our recommendation to council.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that question, Luke. Okay, C-Click Fix.
C-Click Fix. So in the month of July, we had 4 reported issues for our department. All 4 of them were vehicle complaints. I believe 2 of them were for potentially abandoned vehicles. The other 2 were RPP permit violations. All 4 of those were addressed either same day or a couple days after. But reviewing some of the other departments, there was one item that was reported and was subsequently addressed that did affect mobility. There was just overgrown vegetation that was reported kind of all along the Ruxton corridor that was obstructing sidewalk access. This was originally reported to Neighborhood Services. And then our Public Works folks were able to get up there and get those trimmed. There were a couple that kind of fell on private property. So there's been attempts to contact those residents to try to get that resolved as well.
James, do we have the authority to trim trees within the public right of way, even if they originate on private property?
So I think it largely depends. I probably wouldn't be the best source of information on that. But that's something I could find out.
We usually put those requests to Parks and Rec and they're the ones that handle that. So, but if there's a concern, there's always a way to fix that.
Yeah, it would seem to me if vegetation on private property is impeding mobility access on a sidewalk, then we, the city, ought to be able to go in and fix it.
And I think it comes down to the logistics involved. So if it's something that's a costly endeavor for the city to take on, it's not just a matter of going through and trimming, then I think that's something that they would then work with the resident to try to address that, or the property owner to address.
Great, thank you. Can I ask, is the C-Click Fix, and maybe we're about to get to this, does that include calls to the parking hotline? Or is this just on the app?
This is just on the app, the C-Click Fix app. So This is everything that's documented through there. So anything that's reported directly to our department that's that we actively monitor. And then of course I've began kind of reviewing the other departments just to identify these types of issues as well.
Yeah, I think we had established a rhythm of you also reporting on interactions and phone calls.
Yes, so that's
still coming up.
That's the next one, yeah.
Great, thank you. There we go.
So call logs. So it's been a busy month for us. July's typically our busiest. So we did field a total of 488 calls, emails, in-office visitors. Majority of that were phone calls, followed by in-office visits and then emails. And reviewing those various logs, kind of the three most commonly asked questions or issues that have arisen were various citation appeals and collections questions. A lot of it is general parking information as far as how to pay to park, where to catch the shuttle up to the incline or the Cog Railway, questions about reservations, changes to reservations, that type of thing. And then finally, rounding out the top three is permit requests and residential credits.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for the next slide.
All right, and then this is, it's not gonna really show very well for us, I don't think, but. Yeah. Okay. So this may not be the best way to view this, but this was an attempt to kind of give you guys an idea on what the Pike Ride signage is going to be looking like. So this is kind of a template of what we're going to be putting up at the Dillon Mobility Hub. Unfortunately, it does cut off a good amount, but it essentially directs people to the Pike Ride app. There is a QR code that folks can scan to get more information on Pike Ride.
Okay, I think that's the new Pike Ride signage. That's a bit later on the agenda. So next up, I've got art installation at the Dillon Mobility Hub. Who's taking that?
Yeah, so the Crane Arts is installing the Wellspring Art piece of work. That's going to be around September 17th. We do have an agenda and schedule for that we'll be sharing. It's not finalized just yet, but the pieces are going to be arriving here about mid-September. The artist is sending everything to the Mobility and Parking Hub. And there is to be an event held there once the installation is confirmed and installed. So we'll follow up with an email once that happens. It is, yes. And we've worked towards putting infrastructure for that, mainly electricity for it because it'll illuminate at night. So it'll look fantastic.
Do you want to talk also about the new picnic tables at the Mobility Hub?
Yes. So we have 4 new tables at the Mobility Hub at the moment, and one of them is ADA compliant, and welcome anybody to come and take lunch there. They're very nice.
Okay. Next agenda item is the Pike Ride signage. I think we just saw that. And we had the next item says Pike Ride Station at the Duck Stop. We did already talk about that, is that the Hiawatha Station is being moved, and we expect within the next month that the formal station for Pike Ride will be there.
I've got a question. It might be correlated with Pike Ride signage, but just signage in general. for the Creek Walk Trail and just accessibility throughout town. I just bring it up because sometimes there's institutional knowledge, tribal knowledge, if you will, of just how to get across certain points and where to really connect those things. Where do we stand on maybe having some cohesive signage for Creek Walk and or just bicycle paths?
That's a great question, Luke. I think, there was some discussion about coming up with some iconography and here's how to follow Creek Walk. Can you give an update on that initiative?
So the initiative is still active at the moment. We still need those signs out there. I'm not entirely sure at this point, to be honest with you, if that's tied to the local impact accelerator or if that's something we're planning with Parks and Rec at this particular point. But we certainly are aware of the lapse there and we'd like to remediate that. So
Yeah, I'll put this on. I think this is something that we'd like to follow up with. We brought it up a few times. The one that always comes to mind for me is the one that goes on there's a little path that goes over the tiny little bridge by the old Masonic temple. And it's got the tiniest little lettering that says safe route to school. If you really look for it, completely inadequate for our creek walk. So, I think we'd like to get an update from that, from the Parks Department. We'll try to coordinate that, but, we want to make sure that that initiative hasn't fallen off.
And I'd love to be part of that, right? So as a frequent commuter and somebody who sees where somebody might probably miss a turn if they don't know otherwise, just to kind of help gauge where some of those signage
Yeah,
might go. Happy to be part of that.
absolutely, Luke. And we do hold a once a week meeting at the Mobility and Parking Office. And those is a good time for us to take a bike out there, a bike ride possibly, and go take a look at these locations and make note of them.
Okay. So I think we're on to Hiawatha updates.
Well, Hiawatha has been open here for a month and a half, I believe, officially. We do have our restrooms there, new kiosks. It is about 110 spots. We do have overflow parking in front of the Tajin building. That is part to be phase 2. That's about 19 spots as well. So far, we've accommodated new bike racks there for the general public as well. And we do have a new bike and locker program that we're currently wordsmithing to implement in the future in the next month or two. So that is for the 3 bike lockers that are there.
Yeah, so so everyone knows, there are 3 bike lockers on site there, and we're still finalizing exactly how those are going to be used. That was part of the Hiawatha project. So, yeah, we haven't had a meeting since then. So congratulations to everyone who contributed to that. My understanding is Hiawatha was completed on time and under budget. Does that really happen?
Absolutely, it did.
Great work by the team to get that. And from what I've seen, it looks really good, and see smiling people using that almost every morning. So thanks for everyone's work on that.
And for those interested, there's a KOA report with the Mobility and Parking Department and the Public Works Department, if anybody wishes to see that, in the last couple of weeks came out. So
yeah, that'd be a great
Segment on
thing to send around if you're able to. I think the board would be interested in that. Thank you. Okay, accelerator grant. How's the accelerator grant coming along?
So I did write this down because there's a little bit of information. So for everybody that's aware or unaware, the city was awarded $1.53 million for a local impact accelerator grant through the Colorado Energy Office. This will be implemented in phases through the summer of 2029. And the first phase is in development of an active transportation connectivity code. We selected Stantec as our company to help us out with that. And the work includes community and stakeholder engagement, review of existing city plans and comparable codes, development of baseline data and connectivity audit focused on access of Hiawatha and Dillon mobility hubs. The intent is to strengthen the complete streets practice and improve pedestrian, bicycle, transit connections through the community. A draft ordinance is currently targeted for October 2026 and followed by a review from this board, the Mobility and Parking Board, after that, a planning commission, and then the stakeholder before eventually going to the city council for consideration in spring of 2027. After the code phase is completed, later phases and the grant are expected to include 8 or 10 smaller implementation projects and 1 design project, such as bike lockers, wayfinding, mobility hub improvements, technical manuals, and other active transportation improvements that have not yet been finalized. So involvement from this board will be forthcoming in the next couple of months. And so I just wanted to assert timelines and big picture things right now. And as we move on, I'll provide monthly updates to the board and go from there.
Felipe, when do you think we could expect to get a sort of a initial presentation from Stantec?
So they're currently actively working on that right now. I know their kickoff meeting discussed that for every board. If I looked at my crystal ball, I would say the next meeting should have them present something, so.
Okay. Well, I think we're all excited to meet them and to learn more about the project, so thanks for that update.
One more thing, I did mention to Stantec when I chatted with them that they're more than welcome to come to our meeting if there's presentations or not. That way they're aware of what's going on here, and they certainly agreed to that. So hopefully we'll see them here presenting or not. So
Great. Okay, next item is our map board standard operating procedures. Oh, Carl?
So just a clarification, the packet on page 42 includes ordinance 04222, amending Title II of Manitou Springs Municipal Code regarding transportation and parking advisory board and the mock or match board. And I believe in one of our working sessions, there was discussion that this ordinance still referenced the old name of the group, but this isn't on the agenda. So just curious, this is in the packet, but it's not on the agenda. So just confused on, are we talking about this tonight?
Yeah, why is this in the packet? Can you use the microphone, James?
I believe it was intended to be included with the SOP for context.
Okay, so this is the ordinance from, do you know when?
So I
Scroll
believe
down.
this is 2.24, which is what's referenced in the SOP.
Okay, and with that, I see Joy's got her hand up. Joy, do you mean to have your hand up?
I had a question, but now I don't. I think James answered it.
Okay. Okay, so this is the ordinance that is referenced by the SOP, the Mobility and Parking Board operating process. So this is in here for reference. And I think we want to, so I think we can scroll down to the SOP itself. And Joy, I see your hand is still up. If you want to speak, please
Yeah,
just
I'm
jump.
having trouble with it, so I won't use it again because I'm not sure what's going on. Because it shows me I've lowered it.
Yeah, it's okay. But please do speak up. We want to, oh, I think James just cleared it. There you go.
Thank you, James.
Carl?
So before we
give
get an
up.
SOP, can we ask our council liaison to take an action to look into updating this ordinance to amend the title, Transportation and Parking Advisory Board needs to be Mobility and Parking Board, consistent with, further down chapter 2.24 says Mobility and Parking, but above it says the old name, which is just inconsistent.
James, can you go back to page 42, please?
I mean, it's not the end of the world, but just it's not correct. And so it'd be in the actual ordinance title as well as the whereas section references the old Transportation and Parking Advisory Board name for this board.
So if I look in the whereas, it says that we want to change the name.
Oh, Yeah, so you're right. That is right there. So it's just, is it in the, just in the title?
Let me guess those guys that is hereby. So the old one is repealed and reenacted as follows. So that does have the correct name there. So if I'm looking at it, I think that's correct. Does that? Right, so the ordinance says the intention is to update the chapter which used to refer to the TPB.
And maybe we can take this offline, but it just, I recall the ordinance online, chapter 2.24, still referencing Transportation and Parking Advisory Board. Whereas this ordinance is saying there's a change, and so however
Okay.
that.
Let's take that one offline, Carl, and I think we probably don't need to bug Nate about that, but we can work with the city clerk to make sure and find out the process if we need to update one of the ordinances. And I think Denise, are you wishing to speak, or are you waving at us?
No, I just wanted to say, I think the code book has the correct name. This is just the ordinance to change it, and we pulled this ordinance. But I will ensure that that's true with Elena, and if not, we can correct it. So, but I believe the code, the municipal code book, which is published, has the correct name.
Okay.
And I just pulled it up. It is correct online. Thank you, Denise.
And I think, you know, the notable part about this is this chapter 2.24 and 2.24010, the powers and duties of this board. So this was the ordinance that describes what this board should do. So we got A, B, C, D there. Next slide, please, James. And there's E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So those are the duties of the board. And I'll just let everyone know, you know, we drafted this SOP and we pulled directly from this ordinance in creating the SOP for the map board. So now if we can keep going down, I think it was 46 where we start on the SOP. And this has been circulated, and I just want to check and make sure that all board members have had a chance to look at this. Our intention is that we would vote on this tonight. There are a couple of changes that were recommended by staff compared to the item that was sent out, and we'll go through those in a minute. But the intention is that, you know, this has been out for comment, and our hope is that we could move ahead with adopting this tonight. So I'm inclined to focus just on the changes that were made since it was sent out. And then we'll open it up for comment first from the board and then from the public at large. And then hopefully we can move ahead with a vote. So no changes on that page. Okay, this is going to be difficult for me to read. Is it easy to make that bigger, James?
Let me see what I can do.
So there's suggested language for how we select alternatives, I think, alternate members. Yeah, top middle has got a little plus there. That should make it bigger. There we go. So I think the red language is the suggested language, right?
Correct. So the suggested change here was the last bullet point under alternatives. So this change more or less clarifies the process for which that rotation is managed and carried out. So essentially, the new change would read, alternate shall be designated to replace absent members using a rotating order maintained by the secretary. If no secretary has been appointed or the secretary is unavailable, the chair shall maintain the rotation. The next eligible alternate shall serve the entire meeting and shall then move to the end of the rotation. If that alternate is unavailable, the presiding officer shall designate the next eligible alternate. The secretary or staff liaison, if no secretary is available, shall record the designation in the minutes.
That process seems reasonable to me, and I think the way we would do it is we would note that in the minutes. And then we would bring that forward for the next month's agenda. So we would make it clear who the next alternate would be. So that's acceptable to me. Does any board member have a comment on that change?
I just had a
Okay.
question.
Go ahead, Joy.
James, why was this necessary? Is there a
Um,
problem
so-
with how alternates are chosen or something?
So because this is an SOP,
Huh?
it was felt that it was important that it clearly state how these functions be carried out.
I think it was a
Okay.
request from the city clerk.
Oh,
Joy,
okay. Thank you.
okay? Right, let's keep moving. Let's go to the next comment. The fine line to walk. Okay, the rules of quorum. The recommendation is that the meeting is adjourned if we do not have quorum.
And this was a recommendation from our clerk as well. More or less citing that it would open the board up for potential violations, even if those are unintentional.
Anyone have a comment on that? I don't have a super strong feeling. I would say my inclination is, I think we could manage it, but I don't object to this change. So I would support implementing the change that's recommended by the clerk. Okay, keep moving. And right, and this was an error.
Yeah, so this was just a correction made by the clerk that is the mobility and parking director that would appoint a staff liaison or serve as the staff liaison, and not the mayor. But you did also offer clarification that the mayor does appoint the council liaison.
The mayor appoints a council liaison, and that doesn't need to be in our SOP because that's a council process.
And I agreed with that.
Yep, I think that's right. So I think we missed it. Denise, did you have something to
Yeah,
add on
just
that?
a note, the mayor does not appoint the liaison. The mayor makes a recommendation and it's decided by all of council.
I see. Mayor makes a recommendation of the council liaison, and that is then voted on by council. Got it. And Denise, do you agree that that process doesn't belong in the map board SOP?
That is correct. It's already it's in another document. I don't know which one, but yes, that is correct.
Okay. Thanks for catching that. And were there any other?
I believe that was it, but you just skim through. Yeah, that was all of the proposed changes.
Okay, so with that, I think I would be grateful if we could have a motion to accept the Mobility and Parking Board SOP document, recommend to council that we adopt this document as amended. And then that will kick us into the discussion process. So is anyone able to make a motion to accept this document as amended and recommend to council that it's adopted?
I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, Luke. We have a second.
Second.
There's Carl. Now's the time for board discussion on this. Joy, I assume you've had a chance to look at it, so I'm eager to hear your thoughts on it. We haven't spoken about it yet, but I'd love to hear which
I think
your
it's
thought about
put
it.
together well and has a lot of the detail that we want and makes it very clear. So I appreciate all the effort.
Okay. Any other board discussion about this? We're gonna take a.
I agree that it just makes things pretty clear. So I appreciate where we're at right now with it.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this? No, so hearing that, I will proceed to a vote. All members in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, so that passes unanimously. So I will share the recommendation. I'll put it in writing to Nate and to the mayor that we have adopted this amended SOP. I'm so happy that we've done that. Thank you, everyone. That's one of our yearly goals that we got accomplished. So grateful for everyone's work that went into that. And with that, our last item here is board correspondence. So this is a chance for anyone on the board to bring up other items or things that they've noticed or want to share with the board. Joy, do you have anything to share?
Not at this time. Thanks, Corey.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to just share, we do have one regular position and 3 alternate positions available on the MAP board. I know we've got 2 community members who've expressed interest. The policy for joining the MAP board is you have to have attended at least one MAP meeting, and then you make an application and a statement of intent that goes into the city clerk. That would be sent to us, and we would make a recommendation at our next board meeting, and then that would go on to council. And I want to make it clear that me as chair and with support from the rest of the board, we are eager to talk to anyone that would like to join this board. We actually have had a chance already to sit down with one interested member, and we're grateful for that. So want to make it clear that it's not a required or formal part of the process, but there is an opportunity if you'd like to speak with up to 2 of us on the board just to learn about, you know, our vision and things and how the team works. That opportunity is there. So we're recruiting and we're glad to have additional interest. And I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things happening with this board in the coming months and years, especially with this accelerator grant. The other thing I want to make sure everyone's aware of is the Do Colorado Right initiative, and Manitou Springs is participating in this statewide initiative. It's sponsored by the Colorado Tourism Office. So there is a Do Manitou Right component of that. And the real idea behind that is people are coming to Colorado. People are coming to Manitou. They are coming and they're going to visit. How can we show them how to visit in ways that don't upset the locals and don't destroy our natural resources and the things that we care about? I think it's a really great program, and I'm glad that Manitou's part of it. We've got a lot of exciting things. We've got events. We're going to have lots of visitors. And so we're just want to encourage everyone to do Manitou right when you visit. And with that, I think we're at the end of the agenda, and so I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Carl. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Luke. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.